You're watching South Asia Newsline and here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Monday, the 9th of February. India announces $175 million economic package to Seychelles. Pashtun and Baloch activists flag Pakistan's atrocities. And BNP rejects unity government ahead of Bangladesh election. And now for all the details. India and Seychelles on Monday took a major step towards deepening their strategic partnership, signing a $175 million special economic package and multiple agreements aimed at boosting development cooperation. Seychelles President Patrick Hermini, on a 5-day visit to India, met Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi and held delegation-level talks. Later, several agreements were signed in the presence of the two leaders, with both sides agreeing to explore new avenues for economic cooperation. At the center of the discussions was India's push to strengthen maritime security in the Indian Ocean with Seychelles. On technological ties, India and Seychelles signed agreements on digital transformation, under which India will share its experience in implementing successful digital public infrastructure. Highlighting historical ties, PM Modi said the relationship between the two countries extends beyond diplomacy, rooted in centuries of trade, cultural exchange and trust across the Indian Ocean. President Hermini invited PM Modi to attend 50th anniversary of independence of Seychelles as the guest of honor.
आज हम $175 मिलियन के स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक पैकेज की घोषणा करने जा रहे हैं। यह पैकेज सोशल हाउसिंग, ई-मोबिलिटी, वोकेशनल ट्रेनिंग, स्वास्थ्य, रक्षा और मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी जैसे क्षेत्रों में ठोस परियोजनाओं को सपोर्ट देगा। इन पहलों से सेशेल्स के लोगों, विशेषकर युवाओं के लिए रोजगार और कौशल के नए अवसर सृजित होंगे।
And India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that agreements on oil and advanced technology, including computer chips, are helping move India and the US closer to a long-awaited trade deal. He said diversifying India's oil imports and increasing purchases of US technology products would help ease negotiations under the newly announced trade framework. The two countries unveiled an interim framework this past Friday, aimed at lowering tariffs, reshaping energy ties, and strengthening cooperation in sectors such as technology, civil aviation, and digital infrastructure. Goyal said sourcing crude oil and liquefied natural gas from the United States is also in India's strategic interest. Under the framework, India has agreed to purchase $500 billion worth of US goods over 5 years, including technology products such as graphics processing units used in artificial intelligence and equipment critical for data centers. The joint statement did not mention Russian oil. However, US President Donald Trump revoked a previously imposed 25% tariff on Indian goods after saying New Delhi had committed to stopping the direct or indirect import of Russian oil, though India has not formally announced such a move.
Buying of crude oil or LNG, LPG from the US is in India's own strategic interests as we diversify our oil sources. But the decisions are taken by the buyers, by the companies themselves. So the trade deal doesn't discuss who will buy what and from where. The trade deal ensures that the pathway to trade is smooth, ensures preferential access.
Moving on, Pakistan has arrested 4 alleged facilitators of last Friday's deadly suicide bombing at a Shiite mosque in Islamabad as grieving families laid victims to rest this past weekend under heavy security. Reports suggest the Islamic State militant group has claimed responsibility for the gun and suicide attack, releasing a statement and an image purportedly showing the attacker. Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi said the suspects, including the alleged mastermind, were arrested during operations in Peshawar and Nowshera. One counter-terrorism officer was killed and 3 others injured during the raids. Authorities have claimed preliminary findings suggest the attacker had links with Afghanistan, saying he moved across the border prior to the attack. The bomber opened fire before detonating explosive inside the Khadija Tul Kubra Imamburg on Friday, killing at least 31 people and injuring more than 170, one of the deadliest attacks in the capital in over a decade.
उसकी शनाख्त भी हो चुकी है, तो जब शनाख्त हो चुकी है तो उसका जो असल मास्टरमाइंड है उस तक पहुंचा जाए और पहुंच के जो उसकी सज़ा बनती है वो सज़ा दी जाए ताकि ये पाकिस्तान सलामत रहे। ये हमला सिर्फ हमारी इमाम बरगाह पे नहीं है, हमारी मस्जिद पे नहीं है, हमारे किसी अज़ादार पे नहीं, हमारे नमाजी पे नहीं, हमारे उन बच्चों पे नहीं, उन भाइयों पे नहीं, बल्कि ये पाकिस्तान की इस्तकामत पे हमला है, ये इस्लाम पे हमला है।
Afghanistan has, however, strongly rejected Pakistan's allegations, calling them baseless and irresponsible. Kabul urged Islamabad to address its internal security failures instead of shifting blame, stressing that such accusations lack evidence and logic. While bombings are rare in heavily guarded Islamabad, this is the second such attack in 3 months. Shiites, who are a minority in the predominantly Sunni Muslim nation of 241 million, have been targeted in sectarian violence in the past, including by Islamic State and the Sunni Islamist group Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And Pashtun and Baloch activists have accused Pakistan of grave human rights violations, including enforced disappearances and arbitrary detention. They have urged the international community to seek accountability and ensure justice for victims.
The Pashtun Tahaffuz Movement's UK chapter has accused Pakistan of grave human rights violations, alleging that the military targets Pashtun activists through enforced disappearances and arbitrary detention. In a series of statements on X, PTM said Pakistan cannot claim adherence to international norms while silencing human rights defenders, and called for the immediate release of detained activists. The group said denying access to lawyers, courts and families violates due process, adding that enforced disappearances may amount to continuing violations and crimes against humanity when systematic. PTM also criticized the use of anti-terror laws to criminalize peaceful activism, calling it a misuse of state power that undermines civilian rule and fundamental freedoms. Meanwhile, Baloch National Movement chairman Nassim Baloch has urged Norway to question Pakistani officials over alleged human rights violations in Balochistan ahead of a proposed visit by former caretaker Prime Minister Anwar ul-Haq Kakar and Balochistan Chief Minister Sarfraz Bugti to Oslo. He accused the officials of responsibility for enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings and collective punishment, and called on Norway to uphold international law by engaging with victims' families and independent rights defenders, stressing that diplomatic outreach must not come at the cost of accountability and justice.
And a high-stakes national election in Bangladesh is unfolding amid political uncertainty, rising Islamist politics, and fresh protests just days before the nation head to elections. We have a report.
The frontrunner for the post of Prime Minister, Bangladesh Nationalist Party Chairman Tariq Rahman, has ruled out forming a unity government if his party wins the February 12 election. Rahman in an interview said the BNP is confident it can secure enough parliamentary seats to govern alone, dismissing calls for power sharing. Tariq Rahman, son of former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, returned to Bangladesh in December after nearly 2 decades in exile in London. He assumed full control of the BNP shortly after his mother's death.
How can I form a government with the political opponent, then who will be in the opposition? A government needs an opposition to balance the whole thing, needs a good opposition. I think, I don't know what will be their seat number, but if they are in the opposition, I hope to have them as a good opposition.
A new report by the BRAC Institute of Governance and Development titled Rupture, Reform and Reimagining Democracy, says the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina created a political vacuum that Islamist groups have quickly filled. According to the report, the uprising failed to deliver structural reforms or restore strong rule of law, instead producing chaotic governance and a weak interim administration.
I have to be very brief about it. We thought there would be change in the political order. in terms of party system, in terms of reforms, and massive changes in the elite structure. There has to be new elite structure, new elite circulation. These things should have happened, and also certain degree of rule of law. That didn't happen. Rather than we saw a chaotic situation, chaotic governance, a weak interim government who couldn't control the mobocracy and promote the democratic aspiration of the people.
Meanwhile, Dhaka on Friday saw fresh protests erupted over the killing of youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi, a prominent figure in 2024 Bangladesh youth uprising. Hadi was shot dead by masked assailants while launching his election campaign, according to local media. Protesters marched towards the residence of interim government leader Muhammad Yunus, demanding justice and accountability, as security concerns mount ahead of the polls.
And on the edge of the Great Run of Kutch, where desert slowly gives way to grassland, Chari Dhand wetland has earned global recognition with its inclusion in the Ramsar list. Spread across nearly 227 square kilometers, the wetland has become Gujarat's 5th Ramsar site. Declared the state's first conservation reserve in 2008, Chari Dhand is a heaven for life, hosting over 250 bird species. Every winter, its shallow waters and open landscapes welcome thousands of migratory birds from Siberia, Central Asia and Europe. Beyond birds, the wetland also supports rare wildlife such as chinkara, desert fox and wolves. The state government says focused conservation measures will now be strengthened to protect endangered species. The Ramsar tag is also expected to promote ecotourism, drawing bird watchers and nature lovers from around the world, while reinforcing long-term habitat protection.
Arrived in India, in Gujarat, a few days ago, and we've been to Little Round of Kutch, which has been absolutely fascinating. It's an extraordinary part of the world, and as is this Greater Round of Kutch also is very extraordinary.
I have learnt a lot and seen lots of wonderful birds, and also I'm particularly interested in the animals, so we've seen, as my friend said, an Indian grey wolf and jackals and mongoose this morning.
That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.